Hello, I am Taylor Hawk. I am actually going to be filling in for Stephanie Ingram until she comes. So, good evening, everyone. I'm Taylor Hawk. I'm the Director of Legislative and Political Strategy for DSEA. Want to welcome you to the Redding Consortium's Educator Advisory Panel Town Hall. Well, and we are very excited to have you join us all this evening. So, a few reminders to start. Remember, please announce yourself before you're speaking, to identify yourself, mute yourself when you're not speaking, all of those typical Zoom rules. And please note the meeting is being recorded and will be posted for the public. Educator Advisory Panel members, please type your name in the chat right now for roll call. After all the members have typed their names into the chat, we'll have members and DSEA partners introduce themselves. And as a reminder, educational leaders and students from the University of Delaware's Institute for Public Administration and Delaware State University are here as staff members to provide support for the Redding Consortium, and we are eternally grateful for their work and support. Okay, so, and Elena, since I'm filling in, I do not have the list. So if there is any way I could get an assist on the roll call.
Yeah, so for members who have typed their name into the chat, who are members of the Educator Advisory Panel, could you just come off mute and then share which school or which district you're from? Thank you.
Casey Montenay, Christina School District.
Lynn Holly Oates, Red Clay.
Somebody else jump in.
Tangela Ginyard, Christina School District.
Thank you.
And it also seems like we have Benjamin Hodesblatt from Christina, Jeanette Wolk from Brandywine, and then Kimberly Miller is from the Bayard School. But so I think those are all the members.
Okay, great. And then
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm on my phone and I'm driving home from another meeting. This is Jeanette Wild from Brandywine High School. Thank you.
Awesome.
Hello, this is Benjamin Hodesblatt. I am also doing two meetings right now as well. I'm on my phone as well.
Thank you, Benjamin. I also see Karen Eller. Can you introduce yourself too?
Sure thing. Hi, everyone. Karen Eller, Christina School District at Maurice Pritchett Senior Academy.
Thank you. If I'm missing anyone, Elena, or anyone that I'm missing, please speak up and introduce yourself. I see Lori in the chat. Lori, do you mind coming off mute to introduce yourself? Okay. So again, feel free to jump in, but Elena, I think you're ready to move to the next slide. So here's an overview of our agenda for tonight's meeting. During this town hall, we're going to share the Redding Consortium's vision for strong public schools, brief history of the redistricting process in Wilmington, and go over the consortium's redistricting planning process. But the main focus of our time tonight is engaging the educators in a conversation and hearing from you, hearing your input and ideas about how to best support educators and elevate their voices during the redistricting process. And afterwards, we'll share a recap and next steps, and then we will open the floor for public comment. So, strong vision for public schools. Again, we are starting with the Redding Consortium's vision, which is we want all students to excel in school by expanding access to the academic supports that can better meet their needs. The focus of our effort is not about dividing the pie, but growing the pie. And that is incredibly important to expand access to resources for all students. Changing school district boundaries won't change everything, but it's an important first step in bringing school communities together. Our vision for great schools in the city of Wilmington and northern Newcastle County that meet the Redding Consortium's definition of educational equity. And that definition states educational equity requires safe, secure, and student-focused learning environments where every student is intentionally provided access to the support, resources, and opportunities they need to reach their full academic and social potential in and out of the classroom. So a little background on the Redding Consortium. Established in 2019, the Redding Consortium recommends policies and practices to the Governor and General Assembly to improve educational equity for all students in the city of Wilmington and northern Newcastle County. The consortium has been working to achieve these goals by submitting policy recommendations to the Governor and General Assembly in 2020, which have since been funded and implemented by the state. Since then, the consortium has worked with state agencies and community partners to improve educational equity on programs like full-day pre-K for our youngest learners, and in-school health centers and out-of-school time services for students, and a scholarship program for eligible City of Wilmington educators and staff. Another core part of the charge is working on redistricting in the City of Wilmington and northern Newcastle County. The consortium is mandated by the state to develop a redistricting plan, and we'll share an overview of the consortium's current redistricting planning work. So, more historical context. There are 18 public schools in the City of Wilmington serving 11,000 students. Over the years, school leaders and community members have worked together to improve education for Wilmington students, but the system is still too complex, and the consortium believes there's a need for a more unified way to support all students in schools. And the Redding Consortium is using over 20 years of our reports, which you'll see listed there in community input to guide the work. So this, the black line on this map shows the municipality boundary line. The map shows the current 4 traditional public school district boundaries where City of Wilmington students attend school in Brandywine, Christina, Colonial, and Red Clay, which, as you can see from the map, visually depicts the fragmented governance structure of the 4-district model. As you can see on the map, the 4 school districts share responsibility for educating City of Wilmington students. The Christina School District's Wilmington footprint, as you can see, is geographically disconnected from the rest of the district in Newark. So the interim Redding plan. The interim plan was approved by the consortium on May 9th, 2024, which was also affirmed by the General Assembly via a resolution in June of 2024. The interim plan outlined that no more than 2 school districts should serve City of Wilmington students, focusing on removing the Christina School District from serving the city. The interim plan outlines an 18-month timeline for the development of the final plan, which began in May of 2024. The 3 subcommittees tasked with working on this process are the operational impacts, fiscal impacts, and community engagement subcommittees. And as outlined in Delaware Code, the Redding Consortium must address 13 stipulations in the final redistricting plan. And in the interim plan, the consortium assigned stipulations to the subcommittees to work on developing them and addressing them in the final plan. The Community Engagement Subcommittee worked on the creation of the Educator Advisory Panel, which is what you're all here today for, which is part of the Community Engagement Subcommittee to, again, ensure educator voice are involved and reflected in the final redistricting plan. Advisory panel members were recommended by their local presidents or by UNISERV directors, and we are going to continue working with other educator groups to appoint additional members to the Educator Advisory Panel to ensure a diverse set of educator voices and perspectives are included in this work. The subcommittee will work to conduct focus groups to hear directly from impacted communities, such as educators working in high-need schools and parents, families, and community members about their ideas and preferences. Additionally, the subcommittee is going to continually check in with the Wilmington Learning Collaborative to provide immediate help and assistance to the Christina School District. Throughout this process, the goal is for the Redding Consortium to collect feedback, ensure open dialogue, and to build a final plan. The American Institutes for Research conducted social drivers and of health and education landscape analysis about the factors outside of school, like healthcare access, housing, stability, and access to after-school programming that impact students' educational outcomes. The consortium is also working on narrowing the refined list of big ideas, which are broader policy reforms outside of changing just district boundary lines. Because improving student outcomes in the city of Wilmington requires more than just changing district boundary lines. Broad systemic policy reforms are critical in ensuring all students have the support and access to a high-quality education. These big ideas would include additional supports for students. A few examples include enhanced wraparound services, premium pay, and high-quality educational early learning opportunities for students. So where are we now? The consortium hosted 3 Strong Schools town halls in May of 2022 to hear from the community about values and priorities. We hosted 2 subcommittee retreats, Redding Consortium. Again, speaking for Stephanie, so the Redding Consortium hosted 2 subcommittee retreats to discuss redistricting planning in collaboration with the 3 redistricting subcommittees. And during these retreats, they have reviewed data and research from the social drivers of health and education landscape analysis. The process at the retreats has been for subcommittee members to review data and information presented, and then the consortium, full body of the consortium votes to affirm narrowing options as they're refined and presented. The consortium hosted 2 full body meetings in May and July to affirm the narrowed list of redistricting options, and they hosted a community co-interpretation event with AIR in September to provide an overview of key findings and insights from the social drivers report. Strong turnout of community members in attendance at this event, and AIR is currently working to incorporate the community feedback into the revised report. And here are some of the takeaways from the Strong School Town Hall. I will not read all of them, but I will pick up on family engagement, removing barriers, amplifying family voice, especially in high poverty and trauma impacted areas, support for vulnerable students, addressing basic needs, housing, food, mental health to enable learning, high quality school, small classes, personalized support, strong relationships, and early intervention, identifying learning challenges early, fostering engagement via project-based learning. But a lot of takeaways here. Redistricting update. So at the March retreat, the subcommittees recommended deprioritizing any of the single district expansion options, such as Brandywine Colonial or Red Clay, would be responsible for serving the entire city of Wilmington. The consortium voted to affirm this recommendation at the full body meeting in May. So at the June 14th retreat, AIR provided an overview of the preliminary data modeling for the 6 redistricting scenarios. During the data modeling session, AIR provided a high-level overview of the variables for the data comparisons of these options and presented school choice data, student demographic data, and the context for reviewing the modeling scenarios. After reviewing the data and community feedback from the town halls the consortium hosted in May, the subcommittee members at the retreat supported recommending the following redistricting options. So a Northern Newcastle County Consolidated District, Metropolitan Wilmington District, and a Brandywine and Red Clay Consolidated School District. Okay, so next we are going to look at some maps. The first is a map of the proposed borders for the Northern Newcastle County Consolidated School District. So take a second and take in visually what this could look like. Okay, I'm going to move to the next one. The next is the Metropolitan Wilmington School District. A map of the proposed boundaries, as you can see in red, compared to the, you can see the current boundaries outlined in color, and as well as the municipal boundaries. And next, or last, is the Brandywine and Red Clay School District option, which, as you can see, has 3 potential variations for the proposed boundaries: the river model and the modified river model. Okay, so the existing boundaries assign existing Christina Wilmington geographic footprint to red clay, and assign existing colonial Wilmington footprint to Brandywine. The river model, the current red clay boundaries in the city of Wilmington would expand to include students residing in the city of Wilmington south and west of the Brandywine Creek, which is currently portions of the Christina and Colonial School District. The current Brandywine boundaries in the city of Wilmington would expand to include students residing north and east of the Brandywine Creek, which is currently portions of the Christina and Colonial School Districts. And the modified river model, red clay, keeps Lewis Elementary, Joseph E. Johnson Elementary School, Shortledge Academy, and Warner Elementary School. So the consortium during the July full body meeting voted to affirm the top 3 redistricting options to prioritize. These decisions were informed by the district modeling data of the options that are most equitable for students and families. So as you can see, these 3 options on the 3 redistricting subcommittees are currently conducting research to recommend a single recommended option, which includes gathering information and data about the 3 options at a high level and working to address the 13 stipulations required in the final redistricting plan. And Elena, I'm going to kick it to you.
Thanks, Taylor. So I'll just provide a brief overview of the social drivers of health and education landscape analysis that the American Institutes for Research has been conducting for the Redding Consortium for the past several months. And so the Redding Consortium has been working with AAR to better understand the conditions outside of school, like housing, transportation, public safety, and access to healthcare that affects students' health and education. As a part of their qualitative work, AAR has conducted interviews and focus groups with local communities, such as students and families, school staff, and staff from community-based organizations, to hear from them about the impacts of the social drivers on students and families in the city of Wilmington and northern Newcastle County. AAR has also partnered with the Center for Structural Equity to incorporate youth-led, community-grounded research into the landscape analysis. And we also had some of the members of the youth-led team with the Center for Structural Equity actually present their research and findings at the community co-interpretation event in September. And they shared some really powerful words about their lived experiences in the city of Wilmington. And so based on those interviews and focus groups, the top 4 social drivers impacting students' educational experiences are public safety, mental health, housing, and transportation. And it's important to note that social drivers aren't inevitable, but can be changed by changing policies and programs. So we thought it was important to share a high-level overview of some of the key findings and insights that were shared by AAR at the community interpretation event, co-interpretation event. And this is just some of the data that they had reviewed and shared about the current lived experiences of City of Wilmington students in the 4 district system. So as you can see on the screen, it represents the 4 districts that are serving the City of Wilmington. And here is kind of the distribution of where the City of Wilmington students are currently residing. And you can see the kind of the population density on the map as well. This also provides an overview of where City of Wilmington students go to school. And so you can see on the map on the left, it shows the traditional schools districts, schools that are attended by City of Wilmington students. And you can see the concentration by the number of students. And then on the right, it shows the charter schools that are attended by City of Wilmington students. And one interesting or important finding that AAR was able to collect for the social drivers report was a finding that 84% of students currently attend schools in the City of Wilmington, Red Clay or Brandywine, and that kind of points towards insight about the Metropolitan Wilmington District and how a lot of the students are currently attending schools within kind of those district boundaries already. So this slide provides an overview of the student demographics. And so it has a breakdown of the different school choice options. So by the different categories, so it'll look at the total number of students who are attending the district, and it's broken down by the different student populations. But what I think is important to highlight is in terms of the number of students who reside in Wilmington who are attending their assigned public school. And you can kind of see the breakdown of that here as well. And thinking about where students are currently choosing to attend school or the different choice options as well. And this provides more of a breakdown of the information that was shared on the previous slide. in terms of looking at the impact of students who are not assessing the school choice system and attending their assigned schools. And those students are disproportionately students experiencing poverty, students with disabilities, and African American students. And you can see the breakdown that's represented here as well. And then we've also incorporated throughout the presentation, there's quotes from either students or parents or caregivers and school staff that kind of highlight the experiences. And these were directly shared from the interviews and focus groups that AAR had conducted. And this map also shows the percentage of students experiencing poverty and the impact that that has, and geographically where that's located as well. And so when we're thinking about the social drivers and the kind of impact that kind of the support of the ecosystem of different community partners, this kind of shows the kind of fragmented nature of kind of the distribution of different after school programs, and how through thinking through redistricting and or school consolidation, how that can support providing more targeted or cohesive supports for students who are kind of experiencing these different things in their educational journey. So it's important to kind of highlight how the impact of these after school programs, housing support services, and mental health services, how those, how we can think through maybe creating a more unified system for supporting students who are experiencing these social drivers as well. And this kind of more so highlights the impact of the after school programming and some of the troubles that some students have accessing that, whether that's issues with high costs or lack of safe transportation or reduced number of options for programs for students to access. So that's important to note as well. And this map also highlights the kind of impact of chronic absenteeism of students and that link between the social drivers and students missing school and their impact on their educational outcomes. And I know this is a lot of information on this slide, but it kind of shows the different impacts of student mobility and how a lot of students within the city of Wilmington are experiencing transients in terms of moving to different houses or to different school districts, and housing instability plays a major role in that. And so how that impacts in turn students having to move from different districts to districts, and how that can impact in terms of their having to go to a different curriculum, or the impact of having those moves and changes and how that impacts their education. And this quote kind of highlights that as well. And this was from a school staff member. It says, and when I see kids moving around, I always wondered about the gaps. If you left off here in the curriculum, where are you going to be when you go to the next school? So what happens with those gaps? Will there be gaps? And how will a kid make up those gaps? And so a major impetus as well for the social drivers landscape analysis is trying to get a more holistic view of the landscape and how that can potentially impact a redistricting plan that the Redding Consortium proposes. And these are kind of the direct links of where the social drivers data and information can directly impact potential stipulations that the consortium is currently working on. So these are the assigned stipulations for each of the subcommittees. And so thinking through how those connections can be made, and also some of the works with the discretionary recommendations committee can help inform a lot of the planning work for the redistricting plan. So we thought it was important to highlight some of this updated information about what the current landscape looks like and how that it can inform which proposals are going to be ultimately chosen for the redistricting plan. And I'll kick it off to Taylor to walk us through the timeline.
And I see Stephanie here. Stephanie, you want to hop in?
Hi, I apologize for being late. I'm Stephanie Ingram. I'm a fourth grade teacher, and I'm the president of the Delaware State Education Association. Good evening, everyone. So as part of our status update about redistricting, we also wanted to share an overview of the consortium's proposed process timeline. These are some of the key dates and milestones for our work between now and June of next year. In October 2025, you can see we're going to host our third and final retreat on October the 28th. It's going to be a working style retreat, excuse me, with a full body to review the data collected by the subcommittees and to analyze the pros and cons of each model and the distinctions between them. review the community's feedback and the preliminary cost estimates for these models. The retreat will focus on building consensus. In the meantime, AIR will also send their final report for the landscape analysis. In November, we have the consortium convening November the 6th for their next full body meeting to take a formal vote on the options to narrow down to one option for the final plan. We will then work to draft a redistricting plan and finalize the plan with AIR's findings and provide preliminary cost estimates to the Controller General's office. In December of 2025, we are tentatively planning to host public hearings in each of the affected school districts in December or January. And on the 16th, the Reading full body will vote on the final plan. In January of 2026, our goal is to submit the final plan to the State Board of Education in January or February of 2026. The State Board then has 90 days to review the plan as stipulated in Delaware Code. We're also going to send the final plan to the Controller General's office in January to affirm the plan's cost. May 2026, if the plan's approved by the State Board of Education, then the plan for redistricting goes to be submitted before the General Assembly, and then the General Assembly is going to vote on the plan in June. Please note that the transition period and the implementation process will occur following the passage of any plan. The consortium will work with the impacted districts on this process.
Okay, so the next part of our town hall, we would like to hear your thoughts and ideas about the redistricting options, how to best support educators and students, and get your feedback on the resolutions developed by the Discretionary Recommendations Committee. We will discuss the guiding questions related to the consortium's redistricting planning effort to get your input and center your voices in this process. And at the core of the message is supporting a strong Wilmington community and equitable and excellent Wilmington schools for all students. So, few important reminders. This is not the only time we're going to gather feedback. There's going to be multiple opportunities to share input at upcoming Reading Consortium community meetings. We want our conversation to focus on what we are trying to achieve on the ground to determine what resources can better meet the needs of our students and support our educators. No decisions have been made yet about changing school boundary lines, but the intention is that the consortium will make this recommendation to the state board very soon. And we are focused on hearing from educators about how to best support their needs regarding the consortium's redistricting planning efforts, which will then be used to inform considerations about potential redistricting options. Please save any questions or comments about the process for the public comment section. Thank you. So we'll now discuss the following questions to guide our conversation tonight. The first is, what is your feedback about the three redistricting options, and how can the consortium help to best support educators' needs throughout the planning process? So again, take a look at these three options. I already see a hand raised. That's amazing. Christine?
Hi, good evening, everybody. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name is Christine Brown. I'm a special education teacher with Christina School District. And I was just wondering, well, I think that the Northern Newcastle County Consolidated School District would be the best option, just because if we're still dividing it between Red Clay and Brandywine, if students are transient, it's still going to pose the same problems that we're trying to avoid, especially with some of our families going into shelters. If they move, then we have to worry about, can we get a van? Where's the van going? Where we're going to pick them up? As opposed to with the Newcastle County, at least they would still be exposed to the same curriculum and be in the same general area. But my question was, I know that you guys are at the very, very beginning stages of what the change looks like. Has educator salary been discussed at all? Like, whose pay scale would we be going to? I think that information would better also ease educators' minds, because if you're in a higher paying school district, I know you don't want to be lowered or have to be averaged out with a lower paying school district.
I mean, so I know that and somebody else, feel free to jump in. There have been conversations, but I'm really interested. I think tonight it's drilling down on the specifics. So what specifically around pay? You mentioned making sure that no one loses. Is there anything that you think needs to be centered in the conversation, Christine, around pay that you want to add?
Yes, just whose pay scale, if there would be a pay scale, like which district's pay scale we would be leaning towards pay wise, or what that conversation would look like if they completely make a new pay scale just for the Newcastle County School.
Yep. And we're going to talk about premium pay later in the conversation. But Michelle, I see your hand. Do you have anything to add, Michelle?
I was just going to say premium pay was already discussed as at the general, and the comptrollers are working on looking at that because Christina has a premium pay and the other districts don't at this time. So it has been discussed and it is on a different work. Just for those people that are new to this, it's a different subcommittee that's working on it, but they do have it on their radar.
Yeah, and that's premium pay, looking specifically at city educators, in terms of, moving district boundaries. I think it's important to put into the room the conversations around pay scale.
The other thing that I know a lot of people are asking about is the seniority, and the discussion was originally that when teachers move or staff move from one school district to another, usually they lose their seniority, and that if this was done, this would essentially basically freeze your seniority. So what does that look like? So there's been some discussion around and I'll just use a free example, like I've been in Christina for 15 years. If I were a part of Red Clay, I would go in at the 15-year mark. I wouldn't drop down to 0 just because I switched districts, but this would be the only time that was done. So that's another thing that they're looking at.
And I guess, Michelle, do you have anything to add in terms of your thoughts and preferences on the seniority issue?
My personal opinion is I do not like the Northern Newcastle County District, only because there's too many people in the pot. My choice is the Metropolitan Wilmington District, which we keep calling the Red Wine District in joke, because it's Brandywine and Red Clay and the city. But and the idea of the seniority list coming, but I'm also from Christina, so I'm looking to stay no matter what in the city. So I think for some people that's going to be a huge issue, and we don't want to lose really good teachers out of the city of Wilmington. So we're going to need to do something to make sure that we keep what we have.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
Can I ask a clarifying question? Michelle, you said you like the Metropolitan Wilmington District because it lessens the number of educators, or it lessens the number of students. Which one?
No, it lessens the number of hands in the pot. So the whole point of the redistricting was for the city of Wilmington. So so that one of the ideas is the main focus was to help our kids in the city. I live here in the city and the kids are here in the city. So if you go from 4 hands, it makes the city kind of become a really small piece of a ginormous big district when you consolidate all 4. So by consolidating 2 in the Metropolitan District, you have the entire city as one district, and you get the benefits of Red Clay and the benefits of Brandywine and their shared visions to be able to offer the kids the best of both worlds. And it would only be one district that was dealing with the city of Wilmington as opposed to the Red Clay Brandywine model. But it wouldn't be so ginormous in the Northern Newcastle County that the kids would get lost, because I'm looking at sheer numbers. The number of kids in Northern Newcastle County would be close to 40,000 kids.
Thank you for clarifying. I appreciate it.
April?
Hi, I am a teacher, and I just wanted to see if there was any additional conversations or making sure that there's input regarding special education students, the identified versus the unidentified. A lot of teachers know that there are some that are not identified yet, and there's a lot that goes into getting that. I just wanted to know if there would be any additional resources, such as an additional director for special education and conducting the meetings, or just making sure that we have that we're already strapped in. I'm from Brandywine School District, and I know we have a very large school building in elementary, and we still only have one director. And with that additional caseload, that's going to very much increase. And like I said, the identified students as well as the unidentified students.
Thank you.
Thank you.
for bringing that in the room.
Mhm.
All right, this is a big one, so I don't want to move off of it yet because I see we have new faces in the room. So please, please raise your hand. Jeanette, thank you.
Yeah, so I also, have some serious concerns about the idea of consolidating the school districts. I think that the safest bet is actually the Brandywine Red Clay, just putting two together. When you start even, putting three or four together, it's going to get very unwieldy. And then on top of that, you've got all the different contracts and the salary leveling up that's going to have to be taken care of because I'm actually surprised that they're even suggesting the northern Newcastle County, because isn't that part of what happened with the strike in the 70s when it was one giant school district? At least that's the history that I was told when I came here. Um, it and then it was broken up into smaller districts because of the problems that were, that had occurred. If we are going to go to, let's say, the red wine district, that cute little acronym there, it has to be done very carefully to make sure that people's rights are protected, especially seniority, salaries, and all the other things. So, let's say, for example, you're a team leader and there's another team leader suddenly who, now you've got to decide who is going to get that team leader spot and the salary that goes with it. So there's a lot to this that feels like there's a lot of hand waving. This is going, oh, we're just going to put them all together and it'll be just, happy go lucky. And then the other fear is that people will say, well, you're doing it for the kids. That's why you're here. It's about the kids, and not thinking about the fact that we have families that we need to support. We're not, yes, we teach because we love the kids, but we also, this is our career, and we need to be able to pay our bills and feed our families and have a good quality of life. And the idea that somebody might turn around and say, well, you'll do it because it's the right thing to do, without really considering everybody else's needs, that's my biggest concern.
Thank you, Jeanette. Lisa?
Hi, everyone. I'm jumping on. I just found out about this meeting, but I would be in favor of consolidating the districts. Just coming from an inner city school myself in New York. I'm not originally from Delaware, but New York is just a lot bigger in general. But when I did go to school in my community, I was able to get involved in things that I wouldn't have been able to get involved in if I didn't. So I think the idea of like creating community schools and having more parent involvement, which we all know as educators, is like the essential piece to having a great school system. Having all those stakeholders involved is just extremely important to build community and collaboration with the community that our kids are in. And it's not necessarily difficult. It's just it makes things easier. So I would definitely be in favor of consolidating the districts, not just one or two, but I think the plan is 4, but I would be in favor of that.
So Lisa, I'm assuming that you're talking about creating the Northern Newcastle district?
Yes, I was
Thank
just looking that over. Yep.
Thank you.
Be the one.
Great. Thank you, Lisa. Tangela.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Tangela Ginyard, principal at the Byers School. So I am in the Christina School District. I am in favor of the Northern Delaware District. With that being said, it'll just be a unified vision where we will all create one coordinated system with shared standards, resources, and accountability across the district. Also to be equity through access, students across Wilmington and the surrounding suburbs would have equal access to high quality programs such as AVID, the CTE, and early college. The funding and efficiency with the larger district will have a stronger financial base with fewer duplicated administrative costs and potentially better teacher salaries and facilities. The mobility and opportunity for families where they could have access to broader school options without restrictive district boundaries. Leadership and talent sharing, where teacher pipelines, principalship leadership programs, and shared data systems could improve consistency and support professional growth. I was born and raised in Wilmington, Delaware, on the east side. I went to St. Paul's on the west side. However, I did have 5 years of my experience in the Montgomery County Public School. When you look at that model, that is a large school district. So why not balance it out? We're one school district and we have area superintendents where they can handle a cluster of schools and they can all come together. That's just my opinion. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for the example of Montgomery County, and Lisa, your example for Newcastle, or excuse me, for New York City schools. Appreciate that.
Benjamin, next hand.
Hello. So my input would be, I would also like to agree a lot with what Dr. Ginyard just said, but regardless of whatever option is chosen, we would need to make sure that all of, that everybody would be accounted for and, just make it as seamless a transition as possible, because we do want to make sure that nobody is, that nobody's left out or hurt in any way by any of the options, because that's probably one of the most important things, to make sure everybody's protected and to make sure that it works. I think I mentioned last time that I also said something about the consolidated district, the first option, to get consistency as well. And sorry if I'm not coming through very well. I'm doing this from my phone because I'm also in other meetings too.
You're fine. Thank you.
Yeah. And I do see something in the chat, Christine. You brought in the RIFs and voluntary transfers. I'm hoping you could speak a little bit to what you want to be part of the conversation. What out of those two issues do you think needs to be put in the room tonight?
I think educators should know if it would be a possibility. I know when I was in Christina, I've been in Christina forever, but 10 years ago, they were still doing the RIF where, you were accessed and you just had to wait, hope somebody called you back. Wondering if that would be a thing if we're having people that, let's just say we did the Northern Newcastle County, would you be able to VT to, let's say, Wilbur in Colonial? Would that be a thing that's allowed if everything's consolidated, or do you have to stay, like what Tangela was saying, do you have to stay within your region to VT? What would that look like for teachers to move around?
I mean, these are really important things to put in the room. So if you have thoughts on what that should look like, or what you think the kind of the process and guardrails should be, please put those into the room tonight.
I would say teachers should be able to VT anywhere, just because you may live anywhere. Just because somebody works in Brandywine doesn't mean that they live in Brandywine. Also, as Sandra was speaking, I fully agree with everything that she said. But I was also thinking real estate wise. Some parents are like, I want my kid to stay in X school district. So now it's limiting where they can be, where they can move, where they can go, as opposed to a Northern Newcastle County. It's like, okay, as long as I live above the bridge, I don't have to worry about disrupting their education. I can live pretty much anywhere I want to live because they're going to be under the same curriculum, same district, same calendar, as well as teachers. I'm a teacher and a parent. So if we live anywhere, everybody's on the same schedule, as opposed to like right now, my daughter went to Apple schools. Days she was off, I wasn't off, and sometimes vice versa. So outside of the Apple conversation, above the bridge, if that makes it a lot easier for teachers, parents, and the like, and also daycare schedules, because some of our parents, the daycares rely on the district that they're in, and it may not necessarily be the district that's closest to their house.
Thank you. Ms. Frazier?
I'm sorry, I'm in another meeting, but I wanted to know, I'm sure that this might not get answered tonight, but if we could find out what the pros and cons for each plan that is laid out that maybe have been predicted, if we could get that possibly.
What, let's get specific with the issues in terms of pros and cons.
Like with teachers, how like how we gonna be accountable for the teachers and the students? Anything like, cause right now, a lot of teachers, we have no clue of what's going to happen. And we just want to be prepared to make a decision whenever this final decision is made, where we would like to be either working for the city of Wilmington or still working with Christina.
And what specific, like what items need to be brought into the conversation around what the transition could look like, and it's specifically related to educator needs?
Just like what everyone has said with Suchi and Dr. Ginyard, basically like with the salary, pay scale, where the seniority roster. I have to think of some more, but I'm right here in a meeting, so
I can help because I know she said she's in another meeting as well. So some of those
yeah.
concerns have been addressed, or excuse me, some of those concerns were raised in the last town hall meeting, and have been taken and are being looked at in the operational, or I think it's fiscal impacts committee. So we are looking at what it might look like to have a one salary scale or to scale up, to look for seniority concerns. Those issues have been brought up. I can't say that they've been fully fleshed out yet, but it's something that we do know that we need to address. As far as your question about like pros and cons, we don't really have that listed out yet. We're still waiting to finish this meeting and have our community engagement meeting before we can really kind of list out what would be for educators, some concerns that they might have in considering whether they want to stay with one district or move to the proposed district in the redistricting plan.
Thank you. Ms. Cully wanted to add on to what I had, but there's other
Right.
two
I see that the question, we do have a lot of buildings that don't have building leaders. We're depending on, well, I know DSEA has been sending out emails. The information has been sent out several times. For folks who are union members, we've been kind of linking this website so people can check out the information. Last meeting was recorded. This meeting's being recorded. We're sharing that information out. We're also going to be depending on the districts, the locals, to share that information out, and for folks like yourselves who were on the meetings to share that information out to folks who are not here. And again, the question that Ms. Cully put in the box, we don't know yet if they're going to be creating a new union or remain part of their local union. That's to be determined because we haven't decided on the best method. They haven't voted on one yet. That was brought into the last meeting as well, and it's a concern that we know that we need to address.
Stephanie, can I add a couple things to what Tanya just said, only because they've been brought up in buildings?
Yes, go ahead.
The other things that they're asking, they were part of the MOU for the city with Christina. So that was the extended school day and or the extended school year. Would that be something that's still on the table? Christina currently has an extra time in their city schools compared to everybody else. The additional thing would be the number in K through third grade, because there's a cap in the state but currently the MOU and now the contract has it capped at 18. So that's a little bit smaller than the cap for just the state of
State
Delaware.
code, yeah.
So those things, that's when she was talking about knowing the pros and cons. I know we've talked about we don't have this flushed out, but those are some of the questions that I've been asked by a lot of people. And just like you said, we don't know which one we're going to, union or whatever. But they're kind of asking those questions now. So we probably need to put those somewhere, kind of like we did with the premium pay. So they're touched on so that at least they're discussed.
They've been addressed, right? I appreciate it. Yep. I'm going to go to Casey and then we'll come back to Miss Kelly's question about high school. Go ahead, Casey.
So I just wanted to bring voice just because there are way more participants this time than there were last time, which is wonderful. But I just wanted to bring voice to, again, the fact that we did go through these same questions last time. So if you were not in the last meeting, please do listen to, read through all of the information posted from last meeting, because there were a lot of other perspectives brought up in here. So I wanted to throw that in the room. But also the other piece, just to bring some voice to the other two plans that are not the Northern Newcastle County Consolidated District. Something that it did come up last time was the fact that there were some concerns about having too large of a district that is both serving in the city and also the suburbs. That is one of the issues that we already run into in Christina, and where we do struggle at times because there are very different needs in both areas. So I just wanted to bring voice to that. In our last meeting, there was a lot of conversation about the Brandywine and Red Clay Consolidated School District, simplifying down to just 2 districts and which versions of the river plan. So if you're someone who is wondering, I guess, a bit more about those versions, I'd say listen into last time. I don't want to be overly redundant, but I do know that the first plan, one of the big concerns is just the sheer size of what that is, the number of students, and thinking about the needs in both the city and the suburbs happening at the same time in that version.
Thank you. So I do know there are lots of questions that are being put in the chat, but we should probably move on to the second question so that we can get some feedback from educators who are on the call tonight that perhaps we didn't get to hear last time. So question number 2 is asking about supports our students are going to need. I know someone kind of tapped into some special education concerns. So let's talk about supports you think our students are going to need as we transition, and what supports do you think the educators are going to need, and what support do you think the communities might need? And we can try to wrap this back in. There was talk about secondary students. I don't know if we landed in any safe spot about talking about which schools the high schoolers would go to. So that's a concern, and we'll make sure we bring that up. But let's talk a little bit about supporting students through this current whatever plan we decide. Michelle, excuse me.
I just want to reiterate, like we did at the last one, that it's the City of Wilmington students and the City of Wilmington children, not buildings. So like at the beginning, the first screen said 18 schools. That includes our high schoolers that live in the City of Wilmington, but the buildings themselves are outside. So it would affect those children and their needs. So when you're thinking about transportation needs, as far as the City of Wilmington is the entity that is being looked at, not buildings themselves. Because some people are like, oh, this building, and what about this building? What about that? Buildings could be reconfigured and look completely different during the next phase of this. But we want to look at the needs of the kids in the City of Wilmington all the way up to and through high school, because currently they're being bused out of the City of Wilmington in all 3 school districts. Christina is the only one that still has middle schoolers in the traditional schools within the city limit.
Thank you. Appreciate you bringing that back up. So I know some of the things we talked about at our last meeting, as far as educators, were also brought up again tonight about contracts, compensation concerns, salaries, salary contracts, seniority, excuse me, governance as far as administration goes. So we got those covered. So if there's anything else that you think educators might need, we'd be happy for you to put that in the room. We also talked last time about some transportation needs, making sure that climates were safe in our schools, making sure that students felt seen, safe, supported, and heard in their schools. Academic supports, again, and services that are already currently being provided to the students would need to be continued. And we didn't get a lot of conversation around what the community needs. We know that we have to make sure the community understands how this process started, what this process means for their students and for themselves. What else might the community need as we move forward? So I'm going to stop talking and let some other folks jump in if you have any concerns that you'd like to have addressed or written down, captured. Sorry, Kim?
Hello. Regarding the students' needs, I know there was concerns about students who move, and you're talking about moving to different schools. When we think about Common Core, is Common Core going to play into this moving pieces if the schools are indeed following Common Core, or do we anticipate issues that will need to be addressed before such moves take place?
I'm not sure I understand your question. I know Common Core right now is, what we are using as state standards. So if you're asking if we would be able to use different standards, or we would still need to continue to use Common Core state standards?
No, I was saying that earlier there was some concerns that student move, and so there's concern about whether they will be where they need to be. And I'm wondering if anyone is looking into Common Core. Is it being practiced in all of the schools? Will the students be able to transition from one to the other without an issue? Because technically, everyone should be in the same place at all the grade levels.
I understand what you're saying. I think your question is more around curriculum rather than the Common Core standards. What curriculum might they be using, and how's it addressing their Common Core in the schools that they're going to? So I'm going to write that down as more of a curriculum and Common Core standard issue.
Stephanie, I also wanted to add, I think some of the questions are also focused on like the transition and implementation process too. So that's definitely, these are things that we'll compile and collect all the feedback in terms of being able to share it with the consortium. But I think that these questions and everyone's feedback has been really helpful.
Right. So I just wrote down, how do we make sure the standards are addressed and met, especially when we talked, Ms. Kim was talking about transient students moving between schools. I know that was brought up as well, so I'm going to make sure that we captured that. April?
I was just wondering, under either of the three options, is there any talk of maybe having one uniform IEP, such as like an updating or revamping or input from those school districts? A lot of the times when you have students coming from the different school districts, an IEP is not as uniform as we like. So, so just is there any talk about having one document or sit down team and just having, like I said, just one easily readable, uniform document for IEPs?
Thank you for putting that in the space. Lisa?
Right. Yeah, that's a great question, April, because the switch of systems in Red Clay right now is throwing everyone for a loop. So that would be a hard transition if it's not uniformed. But my question is, have we spoken to community groups like the Wilmington Learning Collaborative? I know Stephanie mentioned that we haven't got much input from community. I was just I guess I'm wondering, like, what community groups have we spoken to? And yeah,
I'm sorry. When I said we hadn't gotten input on community, this last question, we didn't get a lot of response about what the community needs. We have members of the Wilmington Learning Collaborative are part of the Redding Consortium, so they're bringing their viewpoint and perspective into the conversations. So we have been talking to folks who are in the Wilmington Learning Collaborative.
Thank
But and there are other community groups that are part of the Redding Consortium as well. And Elena maybe can allude to some of the folks who are on the consortium that do bring their perspective to the conversations. And she can also probably talk to, we've had a couple of retreats where we had community members who were able to give their feedback and kind of look at these plans as well. So we've had some community feedback. So I hope that that explains the understanding, because we have had community impact and feedback. But on this last question that's on the screen is one of the questions that this group really didn't give us a lot of feedback on the last time we met. And I hope that clarifies.
Yes, to your point, Stephanie, we have members of the Wilmington Learning Collaborative who are appointed as ex officio members on each of the 3 redistricting subcommittees. So that's Dr. Laura Burgos, who's executive director, and then we also have Helen Anderson, who's the chair of the WLC Council, and Helen Anderson and Kendra Brown, who is the head of PACE, and also Dr. O, who's the director of the Office of Educational Advocacy for Wilmington City Council. They've been doing a lot of parent and family engagement efforts as well, and presenting about redistricting and what it is and what its potential impact could be, and just educating a lot of the families in the local community in the city of Wilmington about what Redding's process is and what their work is currently being done. And we also recently had a one-pager that was created too that outlines to families about why redistricting is important and kind of how it's trying to address fixing a broken system in terms of making sure that, you know, the educational opportunities are more unified for all students. So I just wanted to note that as well. But those efforts are currently underway, and of course we're looking forward to doing more community engagement. But just wanted to share that too.
Thanks, Elena, for bringing that up. I appreciate you kind of helping me out there with that question.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thank you, guys.
You're welcome. Lynn Holly, please.
Hi. So I'm a school secretary at Warner, and I'm kind of new to this. And so what my question is I've looked through the information, and it talks about like teacher salary and how teachers will be compensated, but I really don't see much information about education support staff and how it affects the education support staff. So I think that's something that needs to be looked at. And then second piece is I am a red clay parent. And as far as like community needs, I feel as though I'm just starting. I feel like I'm an informed parent, but I don't know much about the redistricting. So it's just more information needs to be put out into the community, so that there's more understanding.
Thank you for that. I do know that I also sit on the name is escaping me. What's the other thing that I'm doing, Elena? Discretionary, that's it. Okay, so yes, I'm sorry. I'm not having a good night tonight. So I'm on the discretionary committee, and we are going to be addressing educator support staff pay. We talked about giving educators premium pay. We're going to talk about education support staff in our next, I think it's our next meeting. If it's not the next one, it's the next one after that.
Yes.
But I did want, yep, thank you. I did want to speak to you, Ms. Oates, about you being a parent. How can we get more information out to parents? And what ways do you think parents would best access information about what we're trying to do here to help them to understand what's happening and where things are moving?
So social media, community-wide mailings, information in the schools, would be helpful too. Yeah, because I definitely social media. Um, but yeah.
Okay, because we've been talking about trying to kind of tag on to events that are also that are already happening in schools. So if the school's having some kind of night where they know that families and students' loved ones are going to be coming in, perhaps we could maybe give some kind of discussion around this topic at those nights since folks are already going to be there.
That would
That
be
also makes
awesome.
sense.
Yes, that makes sense. That would be great. And like I said, I'm the secretary at Warner. And so if you have like the contact information, I would be sure to like let you know when we're having an event.
Okay.
And I'm sure you could do that with other schools too.
Right.
Yeah, what as Tika just said, fall festivals are coming up.
Right.
That is a really good way to get the information out to the students who are already in the schools.
Thank you.
And parent-teacher nights, because teachers are there too, so that information can be disseminated to them as well.
Thanks a lot for that one too. Okay, looking at the time, let's move on to the third question. But remember that we do have the ability to capture if you have information or ideas after tonight's meeting. I think it was dropped into the chat.
Yes, I know that Karen has been dropping we have a post town hall feedback form that has all of the questions that were listed in the current town hall right now. So you can also provide your feedback that way as well.
Thank you.
Yeah, and so I'll just provide a quick update. So as somebody had already mentioned, the Redding Consortium had charged the Discretionary Recommendations Committee, and that's a group that's working on kind of the big ideas, which are policies or reforms that are outside of changing the district boundary lines that could improve student outcomes for City of Wilmington students and students in Northern Newcastle County. And so they've been working over the past several months to develop a set of resolutions to be able to present to the consortium. And these resolutions that have been approved are around enhanced wraparound services, as was mentioned earlier, premium pay for educators teaching in high-need city schools, and then supports for students in 9th to 12th grade residing in the City of Wilmington. And that relates to the Boost 26 program that's currently underway. And so the committee will also review 2 additional resolutions at its next meeting, which will be on October 21st. And that's the expansion of early care and pre-K programs, and then looking at specialized programs within the City of Wilmington schools as well. And the committee has also requested and is currently working with the Controller General's office to get cost estimate requests for all of these resolutions as well. And so the focus for the committee is to include in these resolutions a proposal that would be submitted to the Redding Consortium that would include a menu of the big ideas that include all the cost estimates for the resolutions. And so it's asked and charged the community engagement subcommittee with providing feedback and getting public feedback on these resolutions. And as I mentioned, getting those cost estimates from the Controller General's office to be able to provide information about exactly how much everything would cost for those big ideas. And so I just want to also note that the consortium in their approved interim plan had outlined an 18-month timeline, and we're currently nearing the end of that timeline. And that was when the interim plan was approved in May of 2024. And so at this stage, we're working towards narrowing down the redistricting options as we previously discussed from 3 to 1. And so whenever a final plan is chosen, and I know that the next steps for the committee would be for the consortium to consider whatever proposals that are submitted by the Discretionary Recommendations Committee, and that will be a part of whatever is included within any of the final redistricting plan that is chosen. So I just want to provide a quick update about that as well, because I know we'll be providing feedback on those 3 resolutions. And so for this next part, we just wanted to ask folks to provide feedback on the resolutions for review. from the discretionary recommendations committee. And this is from the refined big ideas list that we had talked about earlier that was approved by the Redding Consortium in July at their full body meeting. And so we can just go by each of the resolutions one by one with the time that we have now. And so I'll stop sharing my screen and then I'll share the resolutions.
I know each resolution is already or has also been shared in the chat too, so folks can click and that they can access it that way as well. I know we're running short on time. We want to give folks who want to speak an opportunity just to put anything else in the room that you'd like to before we wrap up. Is there anything that you believe that we have not thought about, addressed, given space in the room to talk about before we wrap up tonight?
Hi, Stephanie. I have all the resolutions that are on the screen currently now.
Thanks. And these are just suggestions. We did talk about these at our last town hall meeting. We got some good feedback around the suggested language and the actions on each of these resolutions. But I just wanted to make sure that everyone who was on, if they had something they wanted to talk about that hadn't already been addressed, that they put that in the room. Michelle?
Yeah, that was one of the things I brought back to our building. One of the things that the 4 doesn't identify is our new teachers that are phenomenal. It doesn't give them, and they're usually the ones that come to start in the city. It doesn't address them because they're not capable of getting their national board yet. They might not have a master's degree yet. They wouldn't have 5 years, and they wouldn't have been highly effective.
Right. So do you have, I'm sorry to cut you off. Do you have an example of something that you would like for the new educators to be able to?
So, yeah, so the suggestion was with number 4. And it says highly effective because that somebody asked about that terminology. And they'd said that anybody that got on their rating their first year as on the DTGSS, which was the newer rating scale of the high end, what would that look like? So there's no language at all in here for anybody that is starting in their first 5 years of teaching and like coming in.
Okay.
For new teachers.
Right.
I'm just, once again, not me. I'm just the
Right.
verbiage that people have come
I
back to me
understand.
with.
Yep. Because we had talked, I think, too, about just the idea of anyone working in the city might get some kind of stipend for working in the city. So that might capture some of those new educators who are
Right.
coming in.
It's things like readings, speech pathologists still fall under the teacher contract and
Okay.
nurses and what have you. So they might be a first year or within their first 5, and they wouldn't qualify for any of this, and they'd have to basically teach in the city for 5 in the city schools for 5 years before any of this would even possibly kick in for them.
Okay. Thank you for that. Jess?
Yeah, hi. I've been following this for a little bit of time now, and there's so many things to, address because there's so many concerns. I'm glad everybody's bringing up the contracts and bringing up stuff like that. Um, but one thing I haven't heard yet is about school choice and how this will affect students that, go to different districts from school choice, and what would that look like?
I'm not sure I understand your question. Are you talking about students who are currently choicing or students who are looking to choice?
Both.
Or looking to return to their
Well, one scenario is students that go like reside in a different district and, go to a different district for school. what would that look like, once the redistricting happens? Would they still be choice? Would they still be allowed to go there? Or, for example, I live in Christina School District, but my son goes to Brandywine. And my daughter goes to another, neighboring district in Wilmington too. So would they still be allowed to go there? Would they have to reapply again? What would that look like?
Okay. Not quite sure, but I think it was my understanding that students who are currently in the schools, again, this is also being discussed, would be allowed to continue to matriculate in the schools that they are already in. But I'll write that down as a concern. So what happens to students who are, okay.
But yeah, there's a lot of concerns. Sorry.
That's okay. Do you have another one that you'd like to bring up? Michelle?
That just brought up another point that was discussed. When we went to neighborhood schools, it's been now almost 15 years. The configuration of that building we're allowed to continue, and that hasn't been addressed. I don't think to the community. Like it's going to be part of the plan, but I think it would make the communities, the districts, the parents feel better for us to reiterate that, because most likely they didn't have kids in the districts when the last time with the reconfiguration happening. And that was a huge reconfiguration when we went to neighborhood schools. So, like, for example, if it was a K-5 school, your child was allowed to stay through to 5th grade. They weren't moved just because, and I think that is one of the big things that needs to be articulated to our communities.
Okay. Thanks for clarifying that. Elena, can you go to just show wraparound and the secondary supports, just so folks could take a look at those as well? I know we did talk about capping class sizes, which is something that's talked about in this as well. And Haley, thanks for dropping that in the chat. The idea that the plan has to allow students to continue attending the school that they're in prior to the boundary change until they matriculate the grade levels in that school. Can we jump to middle and high school supports, please? And this is where Elena was talking about the Boost program, which is where students are getting graduation coaches. Thank you. I'm going to ask one last time if anyone has anything they'd like to say. I know that we do have public comment listed as something on the agenda, but I do believe for folks who have not had the opportunity to speak, is there anything that you'd like to add for the good of the group? We do have the Google form being dropped in the chat a couple different times, so if there's something that you'd like to have addressed that was not brought up tonight, you can certainly put that information in the Google form for us to capture. Again, we're talking about addressing students who reside in the city of Wilmington. So we're talking about the students, not necessarily the schools and the buildings. All right, I'm going to take the last few minutes just to talk about next steps. So again, we do have, as listed in the chat, a couple meetings coming up. If we go back to the slide, Elena, so we can show that to folks. We have the Redding Consortium retreat on October the 28th. That's going to be from 5 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. And again, the subcommittee meetings are here listed, so you can take a look at those meetings. Certainly be sure to share that out. I know DSCA is going to be working to share them out as well. So like I said, our final retreat is October 28th. The Redding Consortium also is going to host its next full body meeting on November the 6th. You can see that is on the screen as well. And that meeting is going to be from 5:30 to 7:30, where you can have the opportunity to listen into the meeting as well. Taylor or Elena, is there anything that we've neglected to add before we wrap up?
Okay, so at this time, we're going to offer public comment. So if you would like to offer your public comment, please raise your hand and also state your name. And if you're with an organization, state your organization too. And so it'll be 2 minutes per individual and 3 minutes if you're representing an organization.
I don't see any hands or anyone in the chat who's asking to give a public comment, Elena. Again, this information is on solutionsfordelawareschools.com. So all the public meetings, all the recorded meetings, the agendas and things that you want to make sure that you're aware of are listed on that website for you to take a look at.
Okay, just wanted to thank everyone for taking the time to join us for our Educator Advisory Panel Town Hall. We also have the post Town Hall feedback form. You can scan the QR code to fill out the feedback form that has all the questions here listed. So if you wanted to share your feedback that way, you can. And we also have an email address, solutionfordelawareschools@gmail.com, that you can also, if you have any questions, reach out that way. So thank you all for your time and for your engagement tonight. We really appreciate it.